The father drags his daughter by the hair, but when the man follows them, he immediately realizes something is wrong. Robin couldn't shake the unease that gripped him. He trailed the man and his daughter through the crowded airport terminal. The little girl's composure was unnerving. No tears, no struggle, just an eerie calmness as her tiny feet struggled to keep up with the man's brisk pace. He followed them through the bustling terminal, weaving between travelers oblivious to the chilling scene unfolding. The man seemed intent on avoiding security cameras, moving with calculated precision toward a deserted wing of the airport. Robin's heart pounded in his chest as his instincts screamed at him to act. But how? He didn't want to confront the man too soon and risk putting the girl in more danger. The girl glanced back briefly, her gaze locking with Robin's. Her eyes were a dull, haunting gray, devoid of emotion. A shiver ran down his spine. There was something deeply unsettling about her gaze. It was as though she wasn't looking at him, but through him. Still, her fleeting glance seemed like a silent plea for help. The pair disappeared into an old maintenance quarter marked authorized personnel only. Robin hesitated, his palms sweaty, his breathing shallow. He thought about alerting security, but something told him there wasn't enough time. Summoning every ounce of courage, he slipped through the door just before it closed, careful to stay silent. The dimly lit corridor smelled of oil and rust, the flickering fluorescent lights casting eerie shadows. Robin could hear the man's voice echoing faintly ahead, murmuring words he couldn't make out. He crept closer, his heart hammering louder with each step. What he saw next made his blood run cold. The man had stopped in a small, hidden room filled with strange equipment machines humming softly, wires dangling like snakes, and a chair in the center surrounded by sharp instruments. The girl sat in the chair, her expression vacant, as though she were in a trance. The man was muttering in a language Robin didn't recognize, his hands moving deftly over a panel of switches. And then Robin saw it, the faint glimmer of a metallic implant at the base of the girl's neck. It wasn't a father and daughter after all. The man turned suddenly as though sensing Robin's presence. His eyes were sharp, calculating, and utterly devoid of humanity. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice as cold as the room around them. Robin's instincts screamed at him to run, but he stood frozen, torn between fear and the overwhelming need to save the girl. The man took a step forward, pulling something from his pocket, a small, cylindrical device that began to hum ominously. "This doesn't concern you," the man said, his tone calm yet menacing. "Leave now and you won't regret it." But Robin couldn't turn back. Not now, not after everything he'd seen. "Who are you? What are you doing to her?" he demanded, his voice trembling. The man smiled, a chilling, unnatural smile. "You wouldn't understand," he said, "but since you're so curious, why don't you stay and find out?" Before Robin could react, the girl's eyes snapped open, glowing faintly. She turned her head toward him, her lips parting to speak for the first time. "Run," she whispered. Robin barely had time to register the girl's warning before everything in the room shifted. The hum of the machinery grew louder, the lights flickered violently, and the air became thick, almost oppressive. He stumbled backward as the girl's whispered plea echoed in his mind, "Run." But he didn't run, he couldn't. His feet felt rooted to the spot, a strange energy pulsing around him, making it impossible to move. He watched in stunned horror as the man flipped a final switch on the panel, and the metallic implant on the girl's neck began to glow. She gasped sharply, her back arching as though an invisible force had taken hold of her. Robin shouted, "Stop this, she's just a kid." The man turned to him, his face disturbingly calm. "She's far more than that," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "You don't understand what you've stumbled into, boy. But now that you're here, you're part of it." Before Robin could reply, the girl let out a piercing scream, not of pain, but of something deeper, something unearthly. Her body convulsed, and the glow from the implant spread, casting strange patterns of light across the room. The walls seemed to pulse in rhythm with the glow, and the machinery emitted a low, ominous tone. Then she spoke again, but this time, Her voice was different, layered, mechanical, and resonant. "I am awake," she said, her glowing eyes locking onto Robin. The man stepped back, his expression shifting to one of awe and fear. "It worked," he murmured to himself. "She's finally operational." "What are you talking about?" Robin shouted. "What have you done to her?" The man ignored him, instead addressing the girl or whatever she had become. "Project Elicium is complete. You are the key. Do you remember your purpose?" She tilted her head, her glowing eyes scanning him. "My purpose is to correct the balance." The man froze, his triumphant smile faltering. "Correct the balance? No, that's not." Before he could finish, the girl raised a hand, and the machinery around them exploded in a burst of light and sound. Robin shielded his face, feeling a wave of heat wash over him. When he looked up again, the man was on the ground, motionless, while the girl stood, her expression unreadable. Robin didn't know what to do. His instincts screamed at him to flee, but something about the girl, the way she looked at him, kept him rooted in place. What are you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She took a step toward him, the light from her implant dimming slightly. "I am the bridge," she said, "between what was and what will be." Before Robin could ask her what that meant, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the corridor. A team of armed men in tactical gear burst into the room, their weapons trained on the girl. "Target acquired," one of them said into a radio. "Engaging containment protocol." "No!" Robin shouted, stepping between the girl and the soldiers. "She's just a kid." "Step aside, civilian," barked one of the soldiers. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." Robin hesitated, glancing back at the girl. Her glowing eyes flickered, and for a moment, he thought he saw fear in them. "I'm not letting you take her," he said firmly. The lead soldier raised his weapon, but before he could fire, the girl raised her hand again. The room was flooded with a blinding light, and when it cleared, Robin found himself standing alone in the corridor. The girl, the man, the soldiers, everyone was gone. Robin staggered backward, his mind racing. What had he just witnessed? Who or what was that girl? And what did she mean by correct the balance? As the distant sound of airport announcements drifted back into focus, Robin realized he had stumbled into something far bigger than he could comprehend. But one thing was clear: this wasn't over. Somewhere out there, the girl was still out there, and whatever she was, she had changed his life forever. Robin stumbled out of the maintenance corridor, his legs shaky, his mind spinning. The bustling airport terminal seemed almost surreal now, an ordinary world that had no idea what had just happened beneath its feet. He leaned against a pillar, catching his breath, trying to make sense of the impossible. Was the girl even human? What had that man done to her? And those soldiers, who were they working for? Questions swirled in his mind, but there were no answers, just a gut feeling that whatever this was, it wasn't over. As he stood there, he felt his phone vibrate in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw a text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have followed, they'll come for you now." Robin's stomach dropped. He looked around the terminal, his eyes scanning the crowd for anything or anyone out of the ordinary. A man in a suit stood by a coffee kiosk, pretending to read a newspaper. A woman with a Bluetooth earpiece lingered by the arrivals board, glancing at him every few seconds. Robin's paranoia spiked. Were they watching him? His phone buzzed again. "Don't go home. Find a public place. Stay visible. Who is this?" Robin typed back, his fingers trembling. No response. He had no choice but to trust the warning. He grabbed his backpack, left his seat on the upper level, and made his way toward the main concourse. His girlfriend, he remembered now. She was supposed to arrive any minute. Could she be in danger too? He needed to warn her. But as he reached the arrivals gate, a hand clamped down on his shoulder. Robin whirled around, expecting one of the soldiers or the mysterious agents he'd imagined were tailing him. Instead, it was a man in his 30s with a disheveled appearance, wearing a leather jacket and a wary expression. "Robin, right?" the man asked, his voice low. Robin froze. How do you know my name? No time to explain, the man said, glancing over his shoulder. You're in deep trouble, and I'm your only way out. Who are you? Robin demanded. The man pulled him aside, out of the flow of pedestrian traffic. Name's Marcus, he said. I work for an organization that's been tracking. Let's just say, unusual activity, that girl you saw. She's part of something big, something dangerous. And now you're on their radar too. What do you mean, their radar? Robin asked, his voice rising in panic. Who are they, and what did they do to her? Marcus sighed, his eyes dark and serious. Project Elysium. It's a covert program, genetic experiments, cybernetic enhancements, things that shouldn't even be possible. That girl wasn't kidnapped. She was created, and the man you followed? He wasn't her father, he was her handler. Robin stared at him, struggling to process the words. Created, what do you mean, created? She's not fully human, Marcus said. She's a prototype. One of the first successful hybrids designed to bridge the gap between artificial intelligence and human biology. Her implant, it's not just tech, it's her core. It holds all the programming they couldn't put in her mind. Robin felt like the floor had fallen out from under him. Why would anyone do that? What's the point? Marcus leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. Control, power. She's a weapon, Robin, a living, breathing weapon. And now that she's escaped, the people who made her will stop at nothing to get her back. Robin thought about the girl's haunting gray eyes, the strange energy that filled the room when she spoke. She didn't seem dangerous, he said. She was scared. She told me to run. That's because she's waking up, Marcus said. She's becoming self-aware. And that's the real danger, not just to them, but to everyone. If she's not contained, she could destroy everything. Before Robin could respond, Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and cursed under his breath. They found us. We need to move now. Wait, Robin protested. I can't just leave my girlfriend. There's no time, Marcus snapped, grabbing Robin by the arm. If you stay here, you're as good as dead. Robin hesitated, torn between fear and his need to protect the people he loved. But then he saw them, 3 men in tactical gear entering the terminal, scanning the crowd with cold, calculating eyes. One of them locked onto Robin and spoke into a radio. We've got eyes on the target. Marcus yanked Robin toward a side exit. Run. Robin had no choice. With his heart pounding and his mind racing, he followed Marcus into the unknown, leaving behind the ordinary world he had once known. But as they disappeared into the maze of the airport's underground corridors, one thought burned in his mind. The girl was out there, somewhere, and whatever she was, she had chosen him.